and more fun with my fractions. These ones are going to have quadratic expressions in the denominator. I'm going to factor those out first so that I can see what my common denominator is. One of the factors are always going to match the one that's over on the other side there. But if I factor this one, I would have u and u, a plus and a minus, and I want the factor, or no, a minus and a minus. Better factor it the right way. Both of them are the same. U and u, minus and a minus, and 4 and 1 would add up to minus 5 in the middle. So my common denominator, u minus 4 and u minus 1. Again, I probably should check for my restrictions. My restrictions would be 4 and 1. So on this first part, both of these are going to cancel. I'm just going to get the negative 40 on top then. On the other side of my fraction, I'm going to take the numerator, that negative 2u. The u minus 4 is going to cancel, so I'm going to multiply it by the u minus 1. So negative 40 equals negative 2u squared plus 2u then. Again, I don't like my u squared to be negative, so I'm going to move everything over here to the left-hand side. So I'm going to have a positive 2u squared, a minus 2u, and a minus 40 equals 0. Now, I could try to FOIL that out right away, but if I recognize that there is a greatest common factor, then my numbers aren't going to be so big and it's going to be way easier to factor. So I would go ahead and divide everything by 2, which means I'm dividing even that 0 by 2, but it's going to stay 0. And so I'm going to get u squared minus u minus 20 equals 0. And that looks a whole lot easier to factor than 2u squared minus 2u minus 40. Not that you can't factor that, but that's a lot easier. So factoring u and u, a plus and a minus. Factors of 20, I want a minus 1, so I'd have to have a minus 5 and a positive 4. Which means my two possible answers are negative 4 and positive 5. I had 4 and 1, which isn't either of those two things, so those both should be okay. Negative 4 and 5 should be my answers. So number 8, if I'm going to factor that one out, x squared minus 8x plus 15. I'd have an x and an x, my signs. Both negatives, so x minus 5 and x minus 3 would give me the x minus 8 in the middle. So my restrictions would be 5 and 3. So on my first fraction, they're both going to cancel out. I'm just going to get the 8. On my second one, I'm going to take the negative 2 times what? The x minus 5. Since x minus 3 was in the denominator. So 8 is going to equal negative 2x squared plus 10x then. And so if I set that equal to 0, I'm going to move them over to the left. So 2x squared minus 10x plus 8 would equal 0, right? And again, I can divide all of those by 2. So x squared minus 5x plus 4 would equal 0. That would factor into what?
X minus 4 and x minus 1.
X minus 4 and x minus 1, which means my two possible answers would be 4 and 1. My restrictions were 5 and 3, which doesn't include 4 or 1, so both of those should be okay. So, number 9, if I factor out my right-hand side here, how does that factor?
That's two.
Or W? I changed it to W, W minus 9 and W minus 2. So my restrictions would be 9 and 2. Gavin's the only one who wants to talk today. Yes. So I'm going to take the 2W times which one? The W minus 9, because the W minus 2 is going to cancel, right? So times the opposite one. On the other side, both of those are going to cancel. I'm going to get the minus 28. Be careful you don't forget that negative in front, because it's easy to do. So 2W squared minus 18W, and I'm going to go ahead and move that over, plus 28 equals 0 then, right? Dividing by 2, W squared minus 9W plus 14 equals 0. And so that would factor into
W minus 7, W minus 2.
W minus 7 and W minus 2, which means my answers or possible answers would be 7 and 2. However, we can't have the 2 because that was one of our restrictions. So W is just going to equal 7.